La Tierra. I'm here in the classroom to film my last video about the history of Skull Valley, and when I got here it was so quiet and so empty that I felt a little weird. So I'm sitting in safe space and breathing so I can proceed. In the last videos we learned that the first inhabitants of Skull Valley were the Yuman or the Patayan. They left us rock art to let us know that they were here, and they lived here somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 BCE, or before Common Era, as you know. So a few other things we learned is the climate was a little different back then. It was colder summers, milder winters, and a lot of rain in the winter. And how archaeologists know this is they study pine pollen, fossilized pine pollen, and pack rat mittens, just like Tep's mom in Kokopelli's flute. And I showed you some metates or mortars in my backyard that they used to grind their food, some grinding holes in the rock in the wash by my house, and that pretty much brings us up to speed. The Native Americans that lived in this area and all of northwestern Arizona they occupied about 20,000 square miles of area when they lived here. They were pretty much all on their own here and enjoying life, and every once in a while having skirmishes over limited resources between the tribes, but mostly getting along, intermarrying, trading, and all of that carried on until about 1540, when the first explorer came to this area from outside, and that was Hernando de Alarcon, which, as you know, there's a couple streets over from La Tierra called Alarcon or Alarcon, however you pronounce it. It's named after him, and he came here in 1540, like I said, and he sailed up the Colorado River, and he wanted to check out the area and see what the people here were like, or if there were even people here. And he wasn't a conqueror, he was an explorer, and he learned about the people. And he was a little afraid when he first got here. He told everybody, when he got here, he told the natives that he was the child of the sun, kind of making himself look big and important. And that was kind of out of fear because he wasn't sure how friendly the people were that lived here. But he had nothing to fear, and they actually had nothing to fear from him either, because he learned about the area and really appreciated it and loved it, but then he left, and he left the place pretty much the same as he had found it. Everything was pretty much the same until the real change came, which is in the mid 1800s. Right around 1860, gold and silver were discovered in the area, which really ramped up the western expansion and people coming to this area to settle and make their new life. But what happened was that those people were afraid of the natives that were living here, and vice versa, which means the natives were a little afraid of them as well, the people who were already here for thousands and thousands of years. And, I think a lot of you know already that that things didn't really go well for the people that lived here once the expansion happened. And everybody tried to get along at first. There were a few Native American tribes in the area that, when they needed to, would raid livestock and supply trains that came through here to help support their tribes. And of course the settlers didn't like that, and there was a little bit of a battle going on between the two. The people who lived in Skull Valley kind of struck up a deal with the people who were settling out here, and this is amazing to me. Basically, the deal they struck was the native people who were here already would be allowed to stay if they stayed in the hills and mountains around the valley and help the settlers protect themselves against other tribes. And it went on like that for a while. It amazes me that people would be so full of themselves and think that they were so much better than another people that they would say, hey, we're going to let you stay on your land. So that just amazed me. But anyway, what ended up happening was that eventually the raiding of the livestock and supply trains and skirmishes with the settlers ramped up, escalated. Eventually the military stepped in, and the military bases or military forts that are around here, like Fort Whipple, for instance, stepped in and pushed all the people that were here before onto small little plots of land called reservations. And yeah, so that's what happened. It's kind of sad. So actually, it's really sad. And as an Anglo, a person who came here, whose ancestors came here from another country, it feels embarrassing that's what my ancestors did. But moving on, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, Miss Denise, you never told us why Skull Valley is called Skull Valley. And I can tell you now. The reason is that, well, first of all, the Native Americans that lived here did not call it Skull Valley. Their name for this area was Baquagio. Hopefully I said that correctly. And that means hair. They named it hair because there's a mountain around Skull Valley that looks like a big pile of hair. Ew. So that's what they called it. But then when the settlers came out, they saw something that attracted their attention, and that's how it got its name. Because 150 years ago, the Yavapai tribe living in Prescott was having a really tough time. There was a big drought going on, and they had very limited resources, and they were basically starving. So they decided that they would go south to ask their rivals, the Pima, who were raising crops down south of Skull Valley. They went to ask for food and help. Now the Pima said, no, we're not really happy to see you, but we are going to give you enough food to get your strength back so that you can go back where you came from. And well, the Yavapai didn't feel like that was really an option because they had nothing to go back to. They were starving. So what they did was they hid until the Pima left their village to partake in a celebration. And only a few people were left behind. And that's when the Yavapai went in, took all the food, took the people that were left behind, and started heading back home. Well, the Pima were like, this is war! And they chased after the Yavapai and caught up with them, and only the very, very fastest Yavapai survived that battle. And all the people that were killed in that battle were left where they dropped. And that is what the settlers saw when they first came to Skull Valley. Just a field of white, bleached white from the sun skulls and skeletons laying everywhere, which kind of freaked them out. And that's why they named the area Skull Valley. So this has just been a broad stroke study of the area, and not just Skull Valley, but also northwestern Arizona. I had a really good time learning about it. There was a lot of stuff in my research that I did not know, and I love learning. If you love learning about this area or any of the original inhabitants of this area, we might learn a little bit more about that later on in the year, hopefully, cross our fingers. But until then, I am going to post a bibliography, or I'll send you a big bibliography. If you email me and say, hey, Miss Denise, I want to know where you got your research from. I want to do a little research on my own. You can email me at, hopefully you can see this, dbennett@latierracommunityschool.org. And if you email me asking for the bibliography, I will send it to you. One last thing, I miss you a lot, and I hope to see you more. I will see you on Monday, hopefully, on our Zoom meeting, and I would encourage you, if you are interested in the history of Skull Valley or anything that I talked about in these last videos, you could kind of expand your learning by, I don't know, I have a few ideas, but you might come up with more. I was thinking that the petroglyphs are pretty cool. Now, we don't have rocks around that we can just, or maybe you do, but I was thinking maybe you could step back and imagine yourself as a human or a Patayan back then. What would you put on the rock? And what would it mean? And why would you put it there? You could maybe jot down a design on paper and take a picture of it and send it to me. And I'll show everybody else if I make another video. I'll show, if enough people send stuff to me, I will show it in the next video. Also, I was wondering, maybe for writing, if you're interested in doing a little journaling, or maybe you already are doing a little journaling, but if not, you could also put yourself in the place of one of the Yavapai that lived in Skull Valley, or the descendant from the Sinagua, or the Hakataya. And what it would be like to be on top of that rock grinding your food. I mean, think about it. You couldn't go to the store and buy food. You had to raise your own crops or hunt your own, I think they hunted rabbits mostly, and other smaller creatures that lived in the area, but sometimes deer, to get the hide and the buckskin that they were clothed in. And think about what it would be like for you, and maybe pretend that you're writing a day in your life, journaling one day in your life, and what did you do, and what did you see, and how did you feel? Just a few ideas. You might come up with some on your own if you so desire. And like I said, if you send it to me, I would love to post it. I guess that's it for now. Hopefully I will see you soon. And until then, I just want you to know I love you. Signing off, La Tierra.